So happy that you have all joined us today. Our webinar today is hosted by amazing speakers, and we'll be chatting about ways to increase your financial controls, reporting, and workflows with automation. ApprovalMax, Syft, and Ignition have a tradition of doing a webinar every year to share the latest insights, and we recently did a similar one in the UK, which was a massive hit. So I think let's get straight into it. Starting off with some introductions. Hi, everyone. My name is Chanel. I'm located in the beautiful city of Cape Town in South Africa, and I'm a partner success manager at ApprovalMax. I take care of all of our amazing partners in the American and Canadian region. I'd like to hand over to Ryan now for his introduction.
Hey everybody, my name is Ryan, Director of Partnerships at Ignition. Really excited to be here on the webinar today and share out a little bit more about Ignition and hopefully we can give you all some tips on how you can implement some changes in your practice. I'll hand it over next to, this is going to be the star of the show, who we'll probably hear from most. Helen, if you want to go and introduce yourself.
Golly, how do I follow that? Delighted to be here as well. My name is Helena Patience. I'm the CEO of Entreflow Consulting Group. I'm a CPA, CMA, and I own Entreflow Consulting Group. We've been around since 2015 as 100% cloud and 100% remote cloud accounting firm, and really focuses on everything up to the fractional CFO level of work. And we have a whole team of implementation specialists who like to nerd it up with technology. So that's why I'm here today to share some of that with you. Sorry, and over to Nicholas.
Thanks, Helena. My name is Nick. I'm a technical implementation manager at Syft. I spend a lot of time working with our bigger clients, making sure that they set up and onboarded onto Syft appropriately and that meets their needs. We at Syft have a mission to make financial reporting and management reporting much easier and less burdensome process. So that's a little bit about Syft, and we're excited to share with you some of our learnings over the years at Syft.
Wonderful. We are super excited to have these fantastic speakers join us today. Thank you all again once again. So right before we start, we just have a couple of house rules. So we have a Q&A box for all of your questions. Please feel free to ask as many questions as you like, interact with us, and we'd be happy to pick them up along the way or get them answered for you at the end of the session. Secondly, this webinar is recorded, so you'll receive a copy of the session should you wish to rewatch or share with your colleagues at a later stage. Now, having a look at our agenda for the session, we'll be discussing the meaning of smart automation in 2024, as well as the benefits of strong workflows, financial controls, and data-driven insights. We'll also have a look at some real-life examples using tools like ApprovalMax, Ignition, and Syft. We'll also discuss some actionable tips and best practices for implementing automation, and we'll also answer any questions at the end of the session. I just want to check quickly in the chat box if... yes, so it's aimed at accountancy practices, if you're a bookkeeper or accountant. This is basically what the webinar is for, if you are in that field. Alrighty, so we're going to be heading into our first poll. So to kick off the session, we have a question to ask the audience today. And that question is, where are you on a scale of 1 to 5 in terms of automation in your firm? So 1 being everything is done manually, which means you've got your books out, your pens out, you're literally doing everything by hand. And 5 being that you are fully automated in terms of your accounting softwares, your payment softwares, OCR, etc. So I'm just going to launch the poll now. There we go. Awesome. Can everyone see the poll? Oh, perfect. I see some answers coming in already. That's super exciting. Amazing. Okay, interesting results. All right, cool. I think that's pretty much everyone. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now, and I'll be sharing the results. So as you can see on your screens, ladies and gentlemen, that the poll results are in. We've got 3% very manual, 11% at the range of 2, and 46% just in the mid-range of being 3. 31% of 4, very close to being highly automated, and then 9% we've got at highly automated. Alrighty. Awesome. Cool. So we will also be moving on to our next poll now, which is our next question, of course, to the audience is, we would like to know which processes do you find the most challenging to automate? And just to highlight that this poll is indeed multi-choice. The options are accounts payable, accounts receivable, payments, reporting and analytics, practice management, and other. If you have any other processes which we don't have jotted down over here, please feel free to pop them in the chat box. Would be super interesting to see. So I'm going to be launching that poll now. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, you are more than welcome to go ahead and answer. Let me see some answers still coming in.
Reporting and analytics really taking the lead here.
That's quite interesting indeed, yeah.
Are you patting yourself on the back there?
Subconscious.
Okay, awesome. I think we've still got some answers coming through. Also, kind reminder that this is multi-choice, so if you have more than one process, you're more than welcome to select it. Okay, cool. Going to be ending the poll now. If you have any last says, get it in now before we're going to close. All right, we're going to close it off. Awesome. And let's go ahead and share that results with the audience. So definitely reporting and analytics coming through as the highest one, which is the most challenging to automate according to our audience. Just after that, we have practice management, payments, and then we have, accounts payable and then payments, and then accounts receivable and the other, which is in the chat box, which is quite interesting. Just having a look at the chat box, we have Maria saying purchase order processing, reporting, budgeting and forecasting, okay, especially at the department level, budgeting multi-year projects, reporting by costing versus budgets, and tools. Okay, awesome, cool. Thank you very much, guys, for your insights. This is really, really super insightful. We really appreciate that. Amazing. Yeah, extremely valuable contributions. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to be stopping my screen now. Awesome, cool. So Helena, we've seen some interesting results from our first and second poll, and this very much leads me to the question that based on your experience, how would you define the best practice for accounting automation? And do you find that it's a one-size-fits-all approach, or do you think it kind of depends on the business and the practice specifics?
So a really good question. I know there's a lot of discussions, when I go to conferences and talk with other firm owners about how they approach their firm. There's a lot of discussions in our industry about niching and getting a narrow focus on the types of clients that you're supporting. And part of that is to help make it a little bit easier for you from a tech stack perspective, so that you're not dealing with 40 applications on a day-to-day basis. That said, I think that there is no one size fits all in any case without and you supporting a client effectively. I've heard people go to such an extreme where they force all their clients to move to a specific bank and they only work with one bank. And I've also seen on the other end of the extreme, they'll take any kind of client from any industry, no matter what software they're using, manual processes, systemized processes, whatever, and it's really hard on their team because there's so much learning. So I think that it makes sense for most firms to have a narrow tech stack for 80% of what they're using with their clients, and then just acknowledge that you're going to have some tools that you might use just for a handful of clients, but that actually make your and your client's life a lot better through the process.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with you that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, as each practice has their own complexity, industry-specific needs, etc. So 100% agree with you on that.
I'll add to our approach as well is that we try to take the laziest accounting approach possible. So, automate wherever possible, so it's good to have your tech stack and everything, but take a look at the processes that are bogging your team down or bogging your client's time down. And it's an iterative process. So you don't set and forget your tech stack and then move on. There's lots of changes that'll happen as the apps grow, and your firm grows and your clients grow.
Exactly. Amazing. Cool. Thank you so much for that. My next question is just around, what do you feel has changed in the last 5 years in the automation accounting tech space? And what is your secret for keeping up with the pace?
It's a good question. So I mentioned we started Ontraflow in 2015. We were kind of at the bleeding edge of technology back then because every new app was a painful process in one way, shape, or form. Back in the day, we could have our accounting software down for a whole day with massive bugs. I can imagine that happening nowadays. A lot of the apps we were testing out, we would be meeting with the business, like the owner who developed most of the app in their basement. So there was a lot of bugs and things that we're working through. We worked to build really good relationships with our app partners to help, guide them on where we thought the app should go to help better serve our clients. And we were able to build really good relationships with them. Over the last 5 years, there is an inundation of applications in this space, which is amazing. And it also, for those of you who are in maybe that, 1, 2, or 3 bucket on where you're at with automation, I would acknowledge that it's probably super overwhelming for you because there's a lot to choose from now, and they don't all do the same thing. They might list the same features on their website, but how they approach things are completely different. And so it's a little bit more work, I think, to find the right fit. Whereas before we only had a couple of options, but they were all kind of like not quite there from some perspective or another. So we had to kind of work around that. So it's different challenges now. And the market has changed quite a lot. I think that's the biggest challenge. Back in the day, we were having conversations with clients about why we didn't need to work in their office, and that we were going to work remotely, and they're getting thrown onto video calls well before everyone talked about Zoom. And so the technology conversation with them was about, it's safe to have data in the cloud, and all of your really personal financial information is already in the cloud. So what gives if your P&L is, right? Nowadays, I find that the market has moved faster than the accounting firms. So it's flipped now. And now, business owners are coming to us because they're from other firms because the firms are not keeping up to date with the technology. They have apps that they want to use, and their existing provider isn't wanting to learn it or get on board with it. And so we don't really have a choice in the automation department now because the market is demanding it of us. It's where the market has moved. It's not just the accountants and bookkeepers driving the progress now. It's the market is demanding it. So you have to get on board. That's just where things are heading.
Yeah, 100%. A little bit off topic, but I do feel also that a lot has changed in the last 5 years, especially with AI. I
Yes.
mean, I'm using ChatGPT every day of my life. It's saving me so much time. and I'm not even on the paid version yet. So yeah, a lot has indeed happened in terms of, yeah, in the last 5 years.
For sure.
Yeah.
And AI is interesting because it's not quite there yet, you know, like everyone gets really excited about it, but for instance, I recorded a video recently and used the Loom AI to summarize, and it was just completely wrong. The transcription was even like not usable. So, you know, it's going to take a while. I mean, you know, it's been around for a while as well. Like, you know, there's been companies that have been doing natural language querying and things like that for a long time now. And it's a long process. And also I feel like people expect it to be perfect out of the gate, and it's never going to be perfect. And so just acknowledging that it's there as a tool, not a replacement, is important to acknowledge, because it's not going to replace our jobs. It's going to augment our jobs. And so it's nothing to be feared, but to figure out how to leverage it carefully, so that you're not 100% relying on it, but leveraging it to make your lives easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think Helena.
Yeah, can I ask my question now? I have some questions for Nicholas and Ryan. So I'm curious to hear, because I speak with business owners all the time in their hangups with technology. And I'm curious to hear from both of you, because you speak with accounting firms and bookkeeping firm owners all the time. From your perspective, you know, what are some of the challenges that you're hearing from them, and maybe some of the concerns or hangups that they have with incorporating new technology into their firms for their clients? So
Yeah, maybe I'll take that one first.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a hot take, but I think in the 5-year question, I actually don't think the general categories have changed that much in accounting, and a lot of the solutions that are here today, I think about, you know, all the apps on this webinar have been around for in the last 5 years, have made incremental improvements in their products, but I still think there's a hesitancy from, you know, there's obviously the early adopters, which you've been one of, to embrace these solutions since the start, but I think we're still seeing hesitancy from some firms that you know, are hesitant to change their internal processes because they've run their own accounting or bookkeeping business for a certain way for a long time. And then also, I think there's hesitancy on recommending these solutions to their clients. So feeling that their clients won't actually embrace the change. So although the technology is, I would say, advancing a lot, I still think there's hesitancy from the accountant, and as well as the SMBs still out there.
For sure. And then
what are your thoughts, Nicholas?
Yeah, Nicholas.
Sorry.
Can I one follow-on question, if I may?
Yeah.
What do you recommend to the business owners if they're nervous? Because I know one of the hangups that I hear from accounting and bookkeeping firm owners is if they've not used it themselves, then they feel kind of awkward recommending it to their clients. So, like, what do you recommend to them to help get over that barrier for them?
Yeah, I think that's always a great one, is to use before you potentially recommend a new workflow to your client. Test it out yourself, or maybe it's just starting with one client that you know is maybe came to you with the idea, and seeing how you can kind of build out a process there, document it, and ultimately roll it out to your further client base. But yeah, I think starting small and starting with your whatever. Most of these apps you can usually get. If they want you to sell the app into your clients, they'll likely give you it for free or maybe heavily discounted as an accounting partner. So there's definitely the opportunity for you to test it out in your own business and see how these workflows go before you roll it out to clients.
Awesome, that's great. And Nicholas, over to you. Sorry.
So I mean, what we've seen typically follows on quite nicely from what Brian said. It was basically a challenge of adoption. You know, going to people who have these well set up processes that have worked for some time now. There's a resistance to change, and part of that is due to, you know, the volume of work and there's so much else that is changing, that now to change your tech stack, which impacts your entire business, is a very difficult thing to swallow. So we've had difficulty proving to people that processes can be automated because there is doubt as to whether a software solution that's cloud-based like us or any other provider can actually solve the problem or make a process better. So we found that we have to work quite hard to get a solid proof of concept out. In doing so, we start winning trust. So we've really tried to get proof of concept to really show people that what we have to offer is available. So, I mean, our advice would be ask for that proof of concept, as Ryan said, trial out the product, but then go beyond that to say, show me, this is my process, show me how it would look like in your tool. And they should go the extra mile to say, this is what you can expect to see. And from there, you'll be able to judge whether it's going to work for you or not.
No, that's great. That's great. Awesome.
Cool. And now just touching on processes and technology, Helena, I would love to hear from you. If you could pick one accounting process to start automating, what would it be?
For sure. And I'll speak about the first one I think we automated as well. And it's one that we force all of our clients to automate out of the gate. They don't have any say in it. And it's because I think from an accounting firm perspective, it's a pretty high risk area. So it's everything to do with AP. So there's a lot of risk with AP, getting bills from vendors in a timely manner, getting them into the books and getting them paid on time. Sounds like a very easy thing to do, but it's not. And we run a really tight ship with our clients because we're doing fractional CFO work with them. We're meeting with our clients by the 20th of the month to go over their financial reports and their forecasting and everything. So in order for us to meet that deadline, everyone else has to get their job done a heck of a lot earlier in the month. And so we have to do real-time bookkeeping. With a lot of our clients, we're doing weekly AP runs. And if we don't do things correctly, you can accidentally double pay a vendor. And it's kind of hard to chase extra money that you've sent to a vendor back. You can get it, but it's a really awkward conversation. You don't want to go there, right? And so we use Dex for the most part to get all the bills and receipts into the books. It has awesome OCR, optical character recognition technology that will read the receipt or the bill and do the data entry for you. I think that is one of the biggest innovations for our industry, to be honest. We went from being data entry clerks to data validation technologists. Okay, so you're easing the chance of data integrity issues. And I used to be a financial analyst, and I'm a CFO. That what freaks me out more than anything, aside from cash going the wrong way, is data integrity. And the last thing I want is any person on my team manually entering data. In fact, you could talk to anyone on my team, and they'll tell you that I have like a really weird rage towards journal entries, and so I ban them at all costs, except for certain situations. But in any case, so Dex will get those documents into the books at the transaction level. So you're audit proof there. It's doing the data entry for you. It's very reliable from that perspective too. These apps have been around that do this. There's a couple of them that do this. Been around for a long time. And so now the accountant or bookkeeper is validating it and making sure it's going to the right account. It goes into your books. You're doing your real-time bookkeeping. So you're pushing your bank feeds, you're closing out those transactions, marking things as paid, blah, 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 as you go. And then we use a third-party application called Pluto. There's a number of other providers out there that do a similar thing. Basically suck up your bills, your open bills from your accounting software. And then from that application, you can send out a payment run. And there's all the approval pieces that you need there too, to make sure that the business owner, whoever needs to sign off on the payment run, is doing that. And when they go into that application, so Pluto, for instance, that we use, they can actually click a link to see the backup documentation. So we now have that backup documentation stored on 3 different servers. So from like a retention and risk perspective, it's really clear. You've got audit trails in all 3 systems. So from an internal controls perspective, I know exactly who had pushed that document in, exactly who had closed out that bill that was paid at some point in time. And if it's an open bill, who sent it over to Pluto and who's approved it. So we've got a really lovely trail there. And it's also very quick. It's very quick and easy for the team to get a bill into the system and out and paid In fact, we have random things that might, like we usually do a AP run once a week for our clients, but every once in a while we'll have a last minute bill that we need to sort out. And we can get that through that whole system in less than 5 minutes.
Okay, amazing. Cool. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that there's like multiple different apps that you use to kind of, get the invoice into the system and then pay it out, for example. That's super interesting. And I know ApprovalMax, we have release capture, which is basically also an OCR tool.
Exactly. Yes. I wasn't sure if I could announce that yet because it's rather new, isn't it?
Yeah. It's released with Zero at the moment, but it's coming soon for QBO as well as ApprovalMax Pay. So one of these days we'll have everything all in house, and you won't have to have these multiple different apps. But of course, they're still amazing and they're still really useful. So that's amazing. Awesome, cool. And Ryan, from a client onboarding perspective, how do you manage your client onboarding when you have a new client?
Yeah, I think one interesting thing there, Helena just kind of talked through the way that she's built out this process with AP that she can roll out to her clients. I'm curious how, maybe we'll start with that AP example. Like, how do we think about pricing and packaging that service offering? Does that go alongside other services you offer? Is that a standalone? So how do you go about you built this awesome process, you can scale it out to your different clients, then how do we ultimately monetize that?
For sure. So we like to take on as much of, I'm a bit of a control freak. We like to take on as much of the accounting as possible because most of the times the business owners are not accountants, not good at accounting. I don't have time for it. And so the more that we can control the process, the better the quality will be. And the more they'll be able to focus on the more important things in the business, i.e. sales, growing the business. So if they're coming to us and they need fractional CFO work, I don't want them touching the books. So we have a bookkeeping controllership fractional CFO package that we do for the majority of our clients, where we're taking on everything from the day-to-day bookkeeping, the AP, payroll, year-end taxes. The one thing that we generally don't do for most clients is their invoicing. So if their data is in another system, we'll bring that in, but we try not to do invoicing as much just because it's very, very timely and it can mess up their cash flow if you mess it up pretty badly. So it's a little bit high risk there. So our package includes all of those components, and we do fixed fee pricing. I know that it's very common for people to talk about the 3 pricing tiers with the bronze, the silver, and the gold, and that makes sense if you're doing the more compliance only type work. But we're doing a lot of value work in the work that we do with our consulting work. So we do it on a value base, and that pricing will increase over time as their businesses become more complex.
Yeah, and then I think it's something that's coming up with a lot of our customers now is thinking about increasing prices, thinking about renewal process. Most accounting and bookkeeping firms will kind of go through a renewal process around this time of year, getting ready for the next year. So once you've kind of got that client on that monthly package, how do you ultimately then think about the renewal and when might a time for price increases might come along too?
For sure. So we've got a couple of structures. It's a bit time consuming, but I think it's really valuable. And it's also helpful for us to build deeper relationships with our clients. So we meet with them every 6 months. So we do a review, just like I do biannual, I can't say that properly, biannual review with our team members. We do a biannual review with our clients as well. So it's a quick check-in to see how everything's going. And at that time, we're also looking at the order of magnitude on the effort on those files. And we work with high growth companies. That's our niche. So they should be increasing in complexity and improving in their results as we go. So it's not uncommon for them to need an increase in their rates. We automatically increase every January. So it's just a standard annual increase. And then we have those 2 check-ins every 6 months just to check in on what's happening, what's changed. And then it's also an opportunity for us to talk about, get feedback, but also talk about any potential other services that we can support them with.
Nice.
So
I
it's
love
just
that, having the
systematized.
opportunity to bring up the new services too.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess the point is it's just systematized. There's nothing worse than having to have a conversation with a client to tell them their price is getting increased. So if you just have a system and you're just falling into your system, then it's just the system that's forcing the increased conversation rather than having to go back to your client and be like, oh, I gotta charge you more, which is not fun.
Totally.
Alrighty, awesome. And Nick, I would love to hear from you just around automated reporting and analytics, which is, of course, your field of expertise. What are the biggest challenges that you see today in these areas?
It's interesting that when you look at the spectrum, but we find often that we have some barriers to entry. I mean, you have a spectrum of people who adopt technology and those who don't. And we find that specific barriers are the time to set up. There's concern about, oh, this is going to take me a really long time to set up. And so I don't want to go down this route. Meanwhile, you're actually foregoing a lot of value in the future in time savings. And so it's difficult to get people over the line from that perspective. Another concern that's part and parcel of that time to get set up is, can you implement reliably? Can we get the software up and running and working in a shorter time frame if we have simple clients, or within the correct time frame, and get the value that we need? We know that software projects can tend to run behind schedule, so there is a concern about that. So we've tried to assure clients that, well, I guess with cloud solutions, mostly things are plug and play, right? So then we are on board fairly quickly, at least, all of the providers are on the call. We connect pretty quickly and you're up and running in some degree very quickly. And then there may be a little bit of uplift once you are on board and initially. But beyond that, you do start to reap the value. So it's a conversation that we have with our clients, but it is difficult to get some people over the line with regards to setting up. Another issue we face is bookkeeping and accounting firms tend to overwhelm their clients with the amount of data that they send. So we have bookkeeping clients coming through to our support line saying they don't know what this means, and it's kind of a conversation to be had with their accountant rather than us. But there's a perhaps sometimes not enough effort gone in from an accounting perspective to truly understand your client's business and get them the salient and important metrics. Business owners tend to look at certain metrics that accountants might not by default look at. So there's a misalignment there sometimes that we tend to see. And then lastly, I think everyone will struggle with this if you do have an accounting firm, is getting your clients to actually use the data, use what you've sent them, and take action on it accordingly. That's like an enigma. Everyone has different solutions to that. It's really tricky. It's client dependent. It's person dependent. It's region dependent. So those are kind of the big challenges that we find when it comes to reporting and analytics, especially to people who aren't used to being involved in reporting and analytics on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, awesome. Just referring back to the first area that you mentioned around implementing. Do you guys have like a standard implementation cycle that you kind of present to your client first and foremost to say that we'd like to get you on board like in the next maybe 1 to 2 weeks, or how do you manage that process with them?
So we typically have a 1 to 2 week onboarding cycle, and that is for your core basic use cases of Syft in our case. But then we do have specific processes for more technical needs, kind of the team that I'm in. We'll have a conversation with clients and say, look, they'll tell us what they're looking for. We'll say, we can get this up and running for you, or you can get it up and running yourself within X amount of days. So that is kind of how we manage the implementation and the onboarding process.
Okay. And how much heavy lifting is from the client side in terms of implementing?
It all depends on what the client would like. We've tried to build a platform that is easy to use and relatively simple, notwithstanding the fact that some financial processes are complicated. So it depends on the commitment of the client. We do offer sometimes to do the work ourselves, and then other times the client will be happy to do it themselves. And I guess the key is to really understand Syft a little bit. So to start playing around with it and using it for a couple of days, and then you start to get the hang of things. And after that, it is actually quite easy to start building what you want to see in Syft.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Amazing. Thank you so much. Back to Helena. So, Helena, with your amazing experience in the industry, I'm sure the audience would love to know what your current app stack is for your clients. If you didn't mind sharing that with us.
Sure. So maybe if we could bring the slides back up, I thought to make it a little bit easier for everyone, we've got them on some slides here. This is not the exhaustive list, but these are some of the common ones that we use on a regular basis. So we use QuickBooks and Xero for our clients. Obviously use ApprovalMax, Syft, and Ignition for our own firm. Dext and HubDoc for the document management. I mentioned Pluto. And I don't know if I mentioned this when I was giving my example, but Pluto's actually pulling the cash from their client's bank account and depositing it directly into their vendor's bank account. So get rid of all the e-transfers and wire transfers and checks. And Sysant is a great application for doing conversion. So we get a lot of clients coming to us that are using, say, Sage or QuickBooks Desktop or NetSuite or what have you. And Sysant's great for getting that data moved from one system to the other. Or if you have complex data that you're trying to get from a third-party system into the books, it's a great application to move things around. And I've got a second slide because there's that many of them. If you don't mind going to the next one. Thank you. Whoops, too far. We use Asset Accountant for all of our fixed asset management. So you get all the assets in there. It automatically creates a journal entry. You review it, click a button. Like I said, we try to strive for lazy if possible. Auto entry is another application, kind of like Dext. We use Uncat as a means to nag our clients to give us answers to questions. So if you push a transaction to uncategorized expense, as we typically do, your client will get you can send out a batch to them at once. They'll get a text message and with a live link to go click a button, and then they can just enter in the details or upload a receipt for you. And then you can have it sent to them every day to make them daily. And it's been really helpful to get our data from our clients quickly. And then for internally, we use a lot of we use Slack. We use that's ClickUp for our task management, and we use Zapier for a lot of automation. So this is a highlight of some of our day-to-day ones, and there's probably another 30 apps that we use across our clients with for other industry apps too.
Okay, amazing. Lena, we've got some questions in the Q&A box over here. Jim Stevens is asking, what do you use Dex versus HubDoc for?
So we started off using HubDoc for all of our clients. The fetch was like magic. We used to be able to get all the bank statements, check images, everything through there, plus vendor statements and bills. Unfortunately, it hasn't stuck around. It's been really difficult with the two-factor authentication. So it's been challenging to keep that in place. So we still use HubDoc with all our Xero clients, and we moved over to Dext for our other clients.
Okay, awesome. And then we've got Chanel, which is asking, what software do you recommend for cash flow management purposes that would integrate with Xero accounting?
For sure. So Syft has an amazing cash flow management application or module within it. If you need, that's more for like, it does short term, but it's not as I think it's a little bit, maybe Nicholas, you can speak a bit more to this on the purpose, but I find if you have a client that needs this in really, really difficult cash flow situation where you need to know where the cash is going to be like on a day-to-day basis, where you need to actually manipulate like to the bill, to the invoice level, then I would recommend Cashflow Frog. But if they're not at that level of dire straits, then Syft's cash flow manager app module is really awesome. And maybe Nicholas, you can speak to that a little bit more on how that works, because I'm doing a great job here.
So we actually just released our Cash Manager version 2 on Monday morning, which is the complete revamp of the existing Cash Manager. So we kind of have two cash flow forecasting elements within Syft. One is kind of what we call short term, so that's up to 90 days, and that's very detailed, invoice and bill specific. You can go set recurring invoices, once-off transactions. That's your kind of immediate short-term solution. And then we do within our forecasting tool have our cash flow forecast, which is typically a longer horizon. So those are the lenses that we have on our cash flow management.
That is so awesome. I'm very excited to go nerd out with that now. And apologies, I gave misinformation there.
I hope you like it. We really like it. So the new Cash Manager, you know, if you do have Syft, you really should go take a look at it. It's been completely overhauled, and we really think
that's great, because it's all in one system then, right? That'll save you time there. Awesome. Thank you for that. Is there any other questions there from the team? or from the audience?
Yeah, we've got one. I think this was kind of a while ago. Can I please ask Helena what app she uses to get built into the system? And I'm assuming that's Dext.
Yeah, Dext for the most part, and HubDoc. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And then we've got Loden's Duplessis. If one would make use of a bundle of these apps or software services, what is the cost run to each month? As only looking at a few of these will be quite expensive over and above the existing software the company might be using.
That's a really good question. So when you're having cost conversations with regards to software, you have to think about the next best alternative. And if you don't have a piece of software in place, then it's people's time. And you have to think about what the hourly equivalent is of somebody's time. And even though you're going to be paying for that person's time anyhow, whether you use the app or not, they could be doing much more valuable level work, or maybe take on another client or what have you. So it's not a super direct kind of like for like analysis. So you have to kind of think outside the box on that. Our typical app stack per client is probably around $100 to $100 or $200 a month. And that's included in our package. And that's kind of the rate that for our client, our cost is probably more closer to $100 or below $100 per month per client. So that's included in our package. They don't know what the cost is. It's just the software is included and they don't have to deal with it, because I don't want to have to, negotiate with my client about them spending an extra $20 a month on, which is an average price for most of these apps, for an application that's going to save our time. It is certainly saving me way more than $100 worth of labor on a client by client basis. So that's the analysis that I would run. As well as there's other indirect costs that you can't really quantify. But if we're doing manual data entry, for sure there's errors. And for sure, somebody's going to spend a whole bunch of time at some point trying to fix it. And that's never really captured anywhere in the cost analysis. So I think that just from a data integrity perspective, anything you can do to save your team time and lower your data issues risk is going to help deliver you more profits at the end of the day. So hope that helps.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Helena. And then we've got one more question from Nancy. What do you use for budgeting, especially at the department level?
For sure. We use Syft because it can do that and it's awesome. So depending on so for department level budgeting, there's a number of different ways that we do this with our clients. And this comes up with a lot of our not-for-profits or our mid-sized clients. A lot of times they want to do it at the GL basis, at the chart of accounts basis, but then you get these 300, 400, up to 700 I've seen P&L chart of accounts or line items. And it's just unruly. Like your P&L is running onto 3 or 4 pages. Nobody's paying attention. And they've also end up with duplicated accounts all over the place. So you never actually know the full extent of an expense that's not embedded in a department. So we often use classes for departments. So we'll have a nice clean and tight P&L, and then we'll have the classes so that we can get each of the departments their profitability with ease. And not all applications can support budgeting at a class level, and Syft can. So that's been great for us to be able to support our clients from a dimension perspective, because there's even I think there's a kind of idea on the market that small, medium-sized businesses are really simple and they don't have a lot of complexity. And I would almost argue they're more complex than some of the enterprise companies that I've worked in, because every single dollar matters so much. And so we really need to understand what's happening in the business and be able to guide them real time, because a couple of days going by with the wrong pricing strategy or spending in the wrong area, and it makes a huge impact for them. Is there anything you want to add there, Nicholas, about the wonderful features of budgeting in Syft?
No, I mean, I think you've covered it pretty comprehensively. Syft does have ability to support divisions and classes. It's kind of built into the software. We acknowledge, as you said, that small and medium-sized businesses do need that ability. So we do cater for it.
Okay, amazing, cool. Thank you everyone for your questions. We really appreciate it, and thank you, of course, Elena, for sharing your app stack with us.
Right.
Awesome. I think we've also heard a lot about how you kind of have been working with Syft, as well as with Ignition and ApprovalMax. And we'd like to know if you maybe have a real life example of how Intraflow has benefited from using ApprovalMax, Ignition, and Syft.
Certainly, yeah. So I'll give you some quick examples, some more recent ones. So for ApprovalMax, it is a fabulous application for our mid-sized clients, our construction clients of all sizes, our not-for-profits of all sizes. So anywhere where you need approvals for expenses or bills. And there's not a lot of alternatives out there that can handle the multi-level complexity. And like I said, I think that we underestimate the complexity of small to medium-sized businesses, but they do have a lot of complexity when it comes to approvals. And so ApprovalMax is able to handle the complexities of our clients. We have a not-for-profit that we started working with about a year ago who have like what I just explained, like departments all over the place. They've got massive dimensions. They've got departments and they've got locations. And so we have to track things in lots of different ways. And with that, they have a lot of managers overseeing expenses for different projects and what have you that can kind of cross over into those two realms. So a heck of a lot of complexity. And they're also not all working on site all the time since the pandemic. So that's added some complexity to them. So when we started working with them, everything was on paper. So someone would print off a bill or a receipt, they'd get their manager to sign it, they drop it off at accounting. They were using Sage at the time, and then somebody would enter in just a generic, like this expense, that number, no details about what it was at all. So from an auditing perspective, the poor auditors had to like go through papers upon papers to figure out what transactions actually were, because that level of detail didn't get into the books at all. And so we converted them out of Sage to QuickBooks Online and got Dex in place to get that data flowing. And we put ApprovalMax in place to get all the approvals managed. And now out there, everything is coming through this. We're getting we're not getting any massive delays in getting data from them like they had before as well. That was a huge issue. But a test to this whole process was they have a very tight turnaround for their audit that needs to happen every year due to their charity rules. And we had to get the books closed by the 10th calendar day, not 10th business day in September. We had 5 business days to get all of our review and final things done. And then we had to pass it over to the auditors. And we were able to do that with all of the documents approved, bills, receipts, everything by the September 10th. And in the past, the auditors would have had massive adjusting journal entries they'd have to throw into the books months later because there was this trickle through and delays with getting approvals done. So we're really able to support them in an awesome way this year, just by having that digitized system. It's very easy for people to use to get approvals done quickly. So that's ApprovalMax. For Ignition, we migrated actually from Proposify over to Ignition about 3 years ago, I think. It's been a while. What was a big pain point for us is the payments. So Proposify was great for, getting a proposal together, getting that out to the client, tracking all the zillion times they looked at it or didn't look at it before they signed it, but it didn't manage the payment piece. So then we would have to set up for our recurring clients, AR in Pluto. And if the payment didn't go through, we'd have a sales receipt in QuickBooks that we'd have to go cancel out, send an invoice, chase the person for cash. And it was just like such a nuisance. So with Ignition, because it's not only managing the proposal, the engagement, shows us all the unique or all the interesting data on how often people look at proposals before they sign it or don't, which I find absolutely fascinating. It also will manage all the payments. So it takes, it can handle the complexity of an upfront project fee and ongoing monthly fee. We charge all of our clients the first of the month for the month in question. And it lets us know right away if something didn't go through. We can charge them again really easily once everything gets resolved. So it just makes it really easy for us not have to have AR issues. And that's worth its weight in gold from our perspective, and it's made it a lot easier on our sales team. And then for Syft, a really unique case. Now Syft can handle a lot. Like I can't speak enough to how much they can handle complex situations. So, the bog standard client with a budget forecast KPI needs reporting, being able to see different views, different periods, is awesome for every client. We also have had some clients where they've had really unique needs. So I mentioned the department budgeting is a little bit more challenging, so they're able to handle that no problem. But we had a unique case where we had a construction client who needed forecasting done at a product and service level. I think I have a couple gray hairs trying to solve this problem, but they had forecasting done by 3 different departments within the company who didn't see each other's forecasts. The business owner was confused about how the projects were actually going, were they on track or not. The truth of the forecasting was a roll up of these 3 together. So that was never actually done effectively. It was all done in Excel. So getting the actuals in there was always challenging. And with Syft, we were able to use some of their extra modules to get the data into the system at a product and service level, so that we can actually do the budgeting at a product service level for some of their projects, and as well an overall organizational budget at a typical P&L basis. And they have an awesome spreadsheet sync. So we're able to use Google Sheets or Excel, but we use Google Sheets to get data dumped in there and sucked in, so we can get inputs from other departments without them having to touch the accounting software, the forecasting software, and update the information as we need to. So it's great from a controls perspective. And it's also safe because it's connecting to our accounting software and pulling in those actuals, so we don't have to manually input information, and so we can validate the data is correct, and it's making it a lot easier for us to handle super complex forecasting needs.
Amazing.
Sorry, that was a lot of detail, but hopefully that's helpful.
Super duper helpful. Thank you very, very much, Elena. All right, guys, and just to quickly wrap it up, just conscious of time, we would love to know from Nick, Helena, and Ryan if we have any tips to get started with automation.
I think
So,
that
I mean-
first one. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna jump in and say that from our side, getting started with automation, the most crucial part is, well, from our perspective at least, is understanding the process deeply, making sure you really know what drivers cause what outcomes, having things documented in a flow. Mira is one of the tools. It doesn't have to be that advanced. You can, pay pen and paper, but really understanding the flow is going to help you determine what your objectives are, and from there, whether a software solution is going to meet those objectives for you. So that's sort of my advice.
Super. And what about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I think when you think about these workflows that might involve different apps coming in and setting up integrations, like just being able to map out a process and using an app like Miro or another whiteboarding type app, or even just a good old-fashioned whiteboard, before you go ahead and turn on all these integrations, you might have kind of duplicate data. If you can kind of leverage, kind of have that process mapped out. And then when you're explaining it to your client, you actually have kind of a map to show them how things will work too.
Amazing. And just quickly from my side as well, for me personally, it would be testing. I think it's super important to experience the tool and all its capabilities. You can redefine, refine, optimize, and it's a great way, of course, to explore and learn as you go along. Amazing, cool. So we've pretty much almost reached the end of our webinar, but before we do, we would absolutely love to hear from the audience one last time. So I'm going to quickly just launch a poll, and we would love to hear from you. Let's just go ahead and do that quickly. Perfect, ladies and gentlemen. I've just launched a poll with regards to if you're interested in learning more about ApprovalMax, Ignition, and Syft Analytics. Awesome. Looking great. Okay, we'll give it a couple more seconds.
Maybe while we're waiting for more answers, I see there was a couple of comments in the chat about Syft. So, I mean, some people may know, may not know. We were, on Monday, it was announced that we've been acquired by Xero. So we are moving into Xero. We'll be a division of Xero. But just to allay any kind of potential fears or concerns, Xero is planning on keeping Syft as a standalone app supporting all integrations across the full spectrum. So whether you use Sage or QuickBooks or any other provider, we will still have the standalone app. But over time, we will be developing a specific section of the app that will embed specifically in Xero only. But for the moment, we're not going to lose any functionality. Whatever provider you're on, you'll still be able to use Syft. So I hope that answers those questions in the chat about Syft's being acquired by Xero.
Amazing, cool. Thanks, Nicholas. We've got quite a lot of interested people from the poll in Syft Analytics, so that's really nice to see. And then our last poll is, we would love to know how many staff does your company employ? Alrighty. Amazing. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll on that one now. Thank you so much. Great stuff. Okay, awesome. So we pretty much have 2 minutes left and we have come to the end of our session. Thank you so much everyone for joining us today. Thank you once again to our amazing speakers, Nick, Helena, and Ryan. You guys are absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate your insights shared with myself and the audience today. It was really amazing. Yeah, we really look forward to having the next webinar, as this is of course a tradition. So we look forward to seeing everyone back on the webinar in the next year or so.